Well, I'll tell you, the guest on the program today is a DJ that my parents used to listen to on WABC. I listened to growing up on WCBS, and I bet there's a kid today who's listening to Cousin Brucie's Saturday Night Rock and Roll Party on WABC, and they're hearing all this music for the first time and loving it. Cousin Brucie is a radio legend. He is in the National Radio Hall of Fame, the Long Island Music Hall of Fame, the National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. In fact, I think they're creating halls of fame just to put him in them. Let's welcome Cousin Brucie.
Thank you so much, Cousin Ghosty. I'm going to call you Cousin Ghosty.
Okay, I'll take it. You know, it's good to have you here on WFDU FM. We play a lot of the music that you play, so this probably feels just like home to you. And boy, do we have a lot of stuff to talk about this afternoon.
Nice. Well, good to be here with you, Ghosty, and that's really nice. I appreciate you saying hello, Brucie.
Well, let's talk about this show that's coming up Thursday, May 28th at 7:30 p.m. at the PNC Bank Arts Center in Holmdel, New Jersey. It's Cousin Brucie Presents Tommy James and the Shondells, along with Herman's Hermits, starring Peter Noon.
Peter Noon, yeah. A very exciting show. I do a couple shows, at least 2 or 3 shows every year at PNC. That's the theater of my choice, by the way. Mm-hmm. I'm very comfortable there. You know, when you're on a stage, you want to feel like you're home. You want to feel good. The audience is amazing. You get something like 15 to 18,000 people. You look out on that stage, it looks like an ocean of people. And they're all there for one thing, to have a good time, to make that, Ghosty, to make that connection. And this show, well, I wanted to try it this time, an all-star show. And very happy to say it sold out so quickly, we don't have any more tickets. Nothing. Nada.
Wow.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is. It is. And I want to talk about these 2 acts, Peter Noon and Tommy James, because you were playing their records at the very beginning of their career. And here in 2026, all of you are still going.
Yep, and still doing it. Would you believe it? Peter, of course, has been a good old friend of mine. John Lennon introduced me to him, and that's how he got involved with John Lennon. And Tommy and I hit it off right from the early days when he first came out with his first song. So I have had him on the show many times, but I've never had them together, and it worked very well. It's going to be a wonderful night. Now, all we have to do is we have to pray for one thing. What do you think that is? Take a guess. I have the stars. I got me, maybe. I got a great audience. What do I need?
The weather.
You are smart. That's it. Yeah, you never know. But, we've been very lucky all these years. I've been doing these shows now, 15, 20 years at PNC. And as I said, I'm very comfortable there. It's going to be a good night.
Well, let's play a little Tommy James and the Shondells, and then we'll come back and we'll chat a little more with Cousin Brucie.
Okay, anytime you go.
All right, let's do it.
My baby died.
Tommy James and the Shondells with Hanky Panky right here on the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop. Our guest is Cousin Brucie, and we've been talking about this upcoming show at the PNC Bank Arts Center in Holmdel, New Jersey, Thursday, May 28th at 7:30. Cousin Brucie presents Tommy James and the Shondells, along with Herman's Hermits, starring Peter Noon. And we were talking about the very beginning of your career earlier, but can you remember the very first live event you emceed? I know that's going back a ways.
Wow, that's a good question. Well, I know we did many San Gennaro feasts, but way before that. Let's go back. I'd say Palisade Park.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you, there's probably several others, because I went to schools. I appeared, at schools, if you want to count those. Did a lot of assemblies. We did the Principal of the Year. We did all kinds of contests. You win Cousin Brucie for a day in your house. We had Win Brucie at party. I mean, a lot of things. But I think the very first series of shows that really meant something was Palisades Park. And I did that for probably a decade and a half. I produced those shows, and they remind me very much of PNC Theater. Maybe that's why I'm so comfortable. So we did those shows for years, and I remember going there Saturdays and Sundays, and it was a wonderful thing. It was all outdoors. I seem to cotton towards outdoors a little bit. And I'm a Brooklyn kid, so I like fresh air once in a while. So Palisades Park had a very, very wonderful magic. There were thousands of young people. Parents would drop them off at the gate, skip the father and skip the fuss, take a public service bus. Public service sure is great. Take you right up to the gate. I remember that. So they would trust me with their kids. And for a couple hours in the outdoor circus theater, we'd have a heck of a show. Now, Ghosty, here's something interesting. Nobody ever sang live. In those days, they'd all lip sync. We couldn't afford a band, we couldn't afford a band. So everybody lip synced. And generally, it worked pretty good. Once in a while, the old record player would skip. And they were an old record player. You want one terrible story that happened to me?
Sure.
You ever hear of Tony Bennett?
Of course.
Yes, of course. Well, I convinced him to come on the show one day. And he just came out with the album, I Left My Heart in San Francisco. Excellent song. And he said, I want to sing with a band. I said, well, Tony, I can't afford a band. Do me a favor. So he looked at me and said, okay. He wasn't happy. I know that. So he came on the stage. I introduced him, and the record player started. I cued the music, and it went like something like this. I left my heart in San Francisco, Cisco. The darn thing started skipping. He went crazy. He never forgave me for that. Never. Anytime I met him, he'd say, don't play my records. Don't do anything. Leave me alone. And it was a friendly little feud. But that was some of the things that happened there. But we had everybody in those shows, from the Supremes to British acts. You name it, they were there. Even Freddie Cannon introduced Palisades Park there. And everybody dressed up. The audience was great, and we had a marvelous time. Marvelous. And then an hour and a half, 2 hours later, the owner of Palisades Park, Irving Rosenthal, was about 5'2", but he was a giant. Whispered in my ear, Brucie, get him into the park. Enough show business. He wanted them on the rides. So we'd feed him onto the rides, and everybody had a great time. It was a wonderful time of my life, Ghosty. A wonderful time.
You mentioned having British acts at Palisades Park. I wanted to get into that because in 1964, when Beatlemania hit, you were right in the middle of it. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, we became WABC.
That's right. Yeah.
WABC. We became so involved with the whole British movement. I'll give you a little example of what happened. Our audience went so crazy. First of all, we got to preface this. The American music industry, Ghosty, wasn't not good shape. We needed something new. There's an adage, I guess, in corporate America: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. Wrong. It needed fixing. But suddenly overseas in England surrounding UK countries, music came out, taking our music, adapting it to their sociological living, and they gave us something new. So suddenly our audience was very aware of a group called the Beatles. They were going nuts. They were causing riots and all kinds of things in all over Europe. Well, we finally got them to come in, and a couple of weeks before they came in, everybody would call me, wanted to hear a Beatle record. I had the first Beatle records on WABC. They used to bring them up with armed guards, right? So we would play them before a certain time. And of course, the station is so powerful that we reach the station alone before streaming and internet and networking. We reach 40 some odd states. So at night, with the ionosphere, when I'm on the air, I play a record and some station in Pittsburgh or San Francisco would copy it.
Right.
So it got so bad. Now, I had an exclusive on Beatle records that every 10 seconds, I would put something like this. The record would go on. Cousin Brucie exclusive. And we destroy the record every 10 seconds. They couldn't copy it. What happened to the audience, kind of interesting. This is sort of a humorous example, but very close.
Okay.
We'd get a call, say, from a guy 2 weeks before the British invasion hit, and the guy's name was Joey. Hey, Brucie, he called me. Hey, Brucie, how you doing, guy? Love your show, cuz, Brucie. Would you please play an Everly Brothers or Jerry Lee Lewis record for me and me girl? Her name is Suzanne. And I said, sure. Hang up. 2 weeks later, the same guy would call me, Ghosty. Listen carefully. Hello? Is this Brucie? His Majesty Sir Brucie? This is Sir John from Bronkshire. I'm the Grand Colshire. Would you mind playing a record by a group called the Beatles for me and my bird, the Lady Suzanne? Suddenly, everybody had British accents. Everyone became Britified. British. What's up? Not Britified.
Close enough. You invented a word, so.
Oh my God. Well, anyway, there you go. And everyone had a British accent. They started dressing like them, wearing their hair like them, and speaking like them. It was amazing. You couldn't go anywhere in those days, Ghosty, without seeing something that said the Beatles on it, or seeing John, Paul, George, or Ringo's picture. It was an amazing time. And they came over, of course, and we covered them at that time, Idlewild Airport, which became Kennedy, and that very famous press conference. And that's what started Beatlemania. It was great. It was a wonderful time of our lives. And it added tremendous credence to the United States record industry.
Can't buy me love.
We're chatting with New York City radio legend Cousin Brucie today on the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop. And on Thursday, May 28th, at the PNC Bank Arts Center in Holmdel, New Jersey, it's Cousin Brucie Presents Tommy James and the Shondells and Herman's Hermits featuring Peter Noon. That show is sold out, but I hope you're going to be there. I know some of us at WFDU are going to be there too. And, you know, we were talking about the Beatles in 1964. The following year, there you were again in the eye of that Beatle hurricane because you were at Shea Stadium when the Beatles played.
I introduced them.
Yeah.
I introduced the Beatles. It was a very fortunate thing. The producer, Sid Bernstein, asked me to do this with Ed Sullivan. Mm-hmm. Sullivan, had them on the air, and that's what really helped make them too. Besides, Beatles were a radio group, really. And then Sullivan got them. Sullivan and I, it's a funny, you want to hear a funny story?
Sure.
Kind of funny. Well, first of all, I met them for the first time in the dugout. We were talking on the phone and things like that. But I met him for the first time in the dugout, and the place was wild. 60,000 screaming fans, most of them young ladies, right?
Right.
Screaming. Everybody waiting for this. The poor acts that preceded them didn't have a chance. Not a chance. And we got them into the dugout, and the cacophony from the audience was unreal. You could feel the energy. I always say, and funny, humorously, Con Ed, our utility, could have turned off their turbines because there was so much electricity in the air. They came in, and John and Paul came over to me and said, and it was really scary, are we going to be all right? I said, what do you mean? And Paul would say, cause, are we going to be safe? With all their appearances and riots and all kinds of nonsense they had in Europe, they never felt the pressure and the amount of energy that we had at Shea Stadium. Of course, the show went off like a hitch. I told the guys, relax, they're here just for you. It's out of love. That's what you feel. Of course, I was scared stiff. I took my fingers in back of me and I crossed my fingers saying, you're lying, Brucie. You're scared. I was. I never felt the energy. To this day, I can conjure up that feeling in my chest. Ed Sullivan and I, we went to home base. That's where our announcing stage was. And we were climbing up the stairs, and Ed Sullivan was not really a rock and roll fan. He really didn't know music. He didn't understand the Beatles. And he turned to me, and of course, he felt the pressure and the danger, the impending danger. And he said to me, Cousin Brucie, is this going to be safe? And I knew that I had him because I knew that he was not being honest. He didn't know them. And I said, I don't know, Ed. He said, what should we do? And I looked at him with his eyes were bulging. I said, Ed, pray. And he looked at me and said, pray? And he walked up the stairs. Now, the postscript to that story is nobody got hurt. There were no terrible, tragic accidents that day. The audience was wild, frenetic, and, as I said, like Con Edison turbines, but nobody got hurt. They were there for one reason. They wanted to hear and see the guys. Unfortunately, nobody heard them.
That's right. The screams were so loud.
Matter of fact, I just heard the whole concert maybe 3 years ago. Somebody sent me an illegal copy.
Okay.
I just couldn't hear a thing. I patrolled the infield and some of the other parts of Shea Stadium, helping the police calm everyone down. And it was a marvelous, great night, great for music. And it worked. The Beatles were on their way.
We just heard the Beatles live at Shea Stadium from the Beatles Anthology 2 release. Cousin Brucie is our guest, and I hope it's not quite as noisy May 28th at the PNC Bank Arts Center.
No, the people are very calm and appreciative and loving. Some get up and dance, some they clap, and they show their appreciation by applause and in their body language. The days of everybody standing on seats and dancing, I think it's long past this audience.
Okay.
Including me.
I wanted to bring up, you mentioned something before, and I wanted to talk about this because, yes, WABC was, and I guess still is, so powerful. It was kind of like the internet before the internet because late at night, that signal could reach so many people. You had folks, all over the country who knew who you were.
People would really wait for a certain time for the ionosphere, in our skies to go up. So we'd get the AM signal, AM bounce off the ionosphere, and it would bounce to LA. I'd reach over 40 states. And that's, as I said, before internet, before network. Now, the business has changed unbelievably. I mean, I love the idea that I heard from somebody in Chicago or Virginia or Port Brucie, Florida. That was exciting. They listened to me on this, what they call a skip signal. Today, it is not unusual for me to be a very important morning show in Tokyo. They listen to me in Tokyo. I'm on the air Saturday night here. And in Tokyo, it's like 8, 9 in the morning.
Right.
Like the next day, right? Mail from all over the world. People catch on to it. And, of course, the nation and Canada, that's a given. But it's a very different thing. So we have streaming, the network. The network is, I'm on the Red Apple network. So besides streaming, I'm also on network that goes on specific radio stations, and they play that. It's a very different type of business. It was more calm and a little easier in those days because I'd go on and really, I didn't have to watch the clock. But today, because of the network, I have to watch, because all the networks join and play their commercials at a certain time. Mm-hmm. So that it stops me a little bit. It impedes, what would I say, my adaptability to be just relaxed. But I'm very used to it now, and it works. It works because in order to gain something like technology, great technology, something has to give. You're always donating something in order to get something. But it's a different ball game today. Do I love it? I always look forward to it. Ghosty, I go on the air, that little light on and I do all my shows from home, by the way.
Okay.
Which I love. I can't be late. I have no excuse. Sometimes I sit in my underwear. No, I don't do that. Right. People will fix it up. I do my show very calmly. My wife walks in. My kids will come in. I mean, it's really a very homey thing. So that we gave certain things up, the flexibility of local radio, and I had it most of the time. Because of the network, we have to be a little more precise. It's okay. I can handle it.
Herman's Hermits featuring Peter Noon will be performing May 28th at 7:30 p.m. at the PNC Bank Arts Center. It's Cousin Brucie presents Tommy James and the Shondells. Herman's Hermits with Peter Noon. Cousin Brucie has been our guest today on the program. When I started this interview off, I mentioned that there was probably some young person today who listens to your Saturday night show on WABC and is getting into this music for the very first time. That wasn't an exaggeration either, because as I'm sure you know, young people today, especially teenagers and 20-somethings, you would think maybe the 60s would be too long ago for them. But boy, they really have rediscovered that music. They've rediscovered vinyl. They've even rediscovered radio. What do you think of this latest renaissance?
The 20-somethings today and the 30-somethings today are very bright. They're very intuitive. Now, the 30s begot the 40s. The 40s begot the 50s. 50s begot the 60s. What I'm trying to tell you is that they know that the 60s preceded the 70s and 80s, et cetera, et cetera. So they knew somewhere along the line this had to develop. It was almost a science, but they feel it innately. Part of their sociological experience. So the 60s, a very important time. It was right smack dab in the middle. And that's why it became so successful, more successful, so the 60s than almost any other decade, even up to now. Technology changed, radio changed, the record industry completely changed, distribution. Now, in those days, distribution, 50s, 40s, was okay. Not great, but okay. By the 60s, they learned how to distribute. They learned how to use radio. They learned how to use other medium, and they advertised, and they developed good techniques. So distribution got the records out. So instead of a successful group making 20, 30, 40,000 copies of a record, now they're doing 1 million because of distribution. Technology was starting to really come around. Now, FM radio, obviously an important part, stereo, but FM radio really was around. If you look at it, you go into the 40s, maybe even the 30s to look at that. It just stopped. The war stopped it a little bit. Then the government took over the frequencies and they used it for their own use. So by the 60s, we got it back. FM was developing. And it had a cleaner signal. But then something happened with FM. They understood and they realized that AM radio, with all these years of experience, was doing something right. We had top 40 radio, top 40. They were doing, they'll play everything but a banana. They'll do everything. Right? They play 20-minute cuts. We wouldn't do that. So what they did is they started listening to us. Also, they wanted something called COMMERCIALS, commercials.
Right.
But they wanted commercials. The way they do this was to garner a large audience. And a small audience is okay, specific. But they want, in order to make money, to make the cash Rogers go ka-ching, ka-ching, they had to do something. So what they did is they took top 40 and their format, melded it together, and they found what we're doing today. Really nice. Talk, involvement with the community. That's what AM radio taught everybody. AM radio, right from the beginning, was involved locally. And we did that the very best. Nobody ever did that again like that. So FM found that out. They found out what to do with music, what to play with music. How do you reach the largest audience rather than a specific audience? Which is okay if you want a station that just points to a specific audience. You're not going to make millions of bucks. But if you are commercial, you want to do the right thing. And that's how that happened. Distribution, technology, and an awareness of what we were doing.
Well, Cousin Brucie, I want to thank you so much for spending this hour with us here. And I couldn't let you go without saying that I think the word that you were looking for before wasn't Britified, but anglicized, right?
Anglicized.
Right, somebody's an Anglophile.
I wouldn't have slipped tonight. Anglophile, anglicized, right. Correct.
But again, this has really been a great conversation. What a great honor to have you on the show.
I appreciate that. Appreciate your interest. And I'm glad that maybe I had some effect on your career. I hope so.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm glad. The main thing is we always tell everybody, the audience, pay attention to the audience. They'll tell you what they want to hear. They ain't shy. Ghosty, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Sunny